Welcome to Big Balls Fantasy Football, the only show by real fantasy football fans, for real fantasy football fans. I'm your host, 20-year fantasy veteran and fan of the winning this week Chicago Bears, Greg Reifsteck.
And I'm your co-host, Jenilee Borek, also a Chicago Bears fan and a 10-year fantasy veteran. And together we are the beauty
and the beast
of fantasy football experts.
It takes Monday nights for us to win. For some reason, we can't win on Sundays anymore, but Monday nights, it took us to get back our Bears stuff on and a big victory.
Yeah, and we've been playing really good in prime time this season, so it seems like when we've had a Sunday night or Monday night or Thursday night game, the team definitely shows up. So
one player that definitely showed up was Alshon Jeffrey. Holy cow. Is this guy making circus catches this season or what?
Absolutely, and we just need that. We need that number 2 receiver, that defenses have to account for outside of Brandon Marshall. And Marshall had a big game. He had 100 yards, no touchdown, but he did have a 2-point conversion. But it just, our offense was absolutely on fire. So, which was to be expected, I think, because Dallas's defense is pretty bad and our defense is pretty bad. So,
McCown put up a whole ton of touchdowns again. My thinking, they keep saying, this week maybe we'll put Jay in. Oh, this week maybe we'll put Jay in. There's a lot of reports saying that they're just doing that on purpose. I think they're just sticking with the hot hand, and it's helping everybody fantasy-wise if they dare take him. But the problem is, I wanted to recommend him this week on my picks, but it's Tuesday, and we still don't know if he's playing this week.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. I mean, he did have a great game, like you mentioned, 4 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. So if you played him this week in fantasy, you probably he helped you get through your first round of playoffs. But I don't know, because I think that there's good chemistry now being developed with the offense with him in there, and so I do understand what you're saying about keeping McCown in there and not putting Cutler in, because Cutler's been out for a while. But if your starting quarterback is ready to come back, how do you tell him, no, we're just going to keep the backup in? And especially when he's playing, in a contract year, there's a lot of question marks there as well. So,
and especially he was one of the reasons why Tresson said he wanted to come to the team. So I think we're going to have a little bit of a quarterback controversy.
Yeah, and we have to win every game out. Our next game is against the Cleveland Browns, and we saw what they did to the Patriots this week in New England, and we have to play them in Cleveland. They held the Patriots scoreless through the whole first half of the game, and not many teams can do that defensively. So, this is not a game to walk in and just think, we can put up an easy 45 points on this defense. I don't think that's going to be the case.
Right, and we're also not the comeback kids at all. The reason we won on Monday night against Dallas is because it was a little bit neck and neck, and then finally in the third, our defense found themselves somehow, and we pulled ahead. I mean, we're not a come-from-behind team at all. We've seen how that's worked out.
Right. And, again, we gave up a ton of rushing yards. DeMarco Murray had a great game.
Yep.
And I don't think that's going to change. Luckily, Cleveland doesn't have, a super, super good back. But still, I still think that they're going to be able to get a lot of rushing yards. And our defense just did enough last night for us to be able to keep the lead and win, but it's going to be interesting from here on out. But, we beat the Cowboys, I guess, to help Philadelphia in a sense, because they helped us against the Lions. So it was payback, Yeah,
but then in 2 weeks comes our pre-Christmas game against Philly, and I'll get into that on my picks. Not going to be pretty.
And again, that one's in Philadelphia.
Right. So we're going to get to we'll get to that in Philadelphia and weather in a minute, but we have to dedicate this show to Mike Ditka. Finally, his number was retired. Good old number 89, the greatest coach in Bears history, next to Papa Bear Hallis, of course. Took us to our last Super Bowl win. not last Super Bowl win. You know, he's in the Hall of Fame, one of the greatest tight ends that ever played for our team. It was just really great watching his ceremony last night at halftime.
Yeah, and I actually filmed it, you know, on my phone, on the TV. You know, I was sitting there filming it just because it is such a good thing to have, you know, to actually have that memory for years to come. And, you know, I think it was a great night for them to do it, you know, it being a big game, the Cowboys, Bears, it's Monday Night Football. You know, I just think in cold weather, you know, it worked out that it was like the perfect night for them to retire his number. So happy post Ditka Day, but now we have a Ditka Day every year.
Yes, that's so awesome. And I think it really pumped up our team. I think him being there, it being that night, and it being against the Cowboys, who he, you know, was a part in coaching them for a while under Tom Landry. Just all that history was the perfect choice of a game. Just damn, it was like what 9 degrees at game time, and then it just dropped after that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think by the time the game started, the wind chill was actually like -5. I think the temperature might have been 1 degrees or something like that, but the wind chill was in the negative. You know, it was negative. So that game was definitely the coldest of the weekend. I think it's actually, because that's very cold weather for, you know, even December in Chicago. You usually don't get that weather until January, February. So I think it was probably one of the coldest games, you know, possibly in history. It's got to be up there.
For the Bears. Oh, definitely, definitely. And so speaking of weather, we go from cold to not only cold, but severe snow. Waking up on Sunday, not having to watch the Bears and getting to turn on the TV and see the Eagles take on the Lions in 8 inches of snow was Christmas come early to me. That was some fun-ass football.
Yeah, and there were so many snowy games. You know, that Baltimore-Minnesota game was in the snow. There was some snow in that Washington-Kansas City game. Yeah. So there were multiple games that there was snow. Of course, the Lions-Eagles had the most snow, and it was fun. And I think that's why, you know, the games ended up being pretty high scoring, which is surprising, you know, for that many games being in snow. But I think it let up a little bit in that Eagles game in the second half. And that's why, you know, the Eagles were able to get going. Detroit never really got going. But that first half, it was like neither team could do anything because it was just coming down, you know, nonstop.
And when I saw that, the factor is when it comes to fantasy, you need to plan for these things. You need a contingency plan. That's why going into the playoffs, you need a deep bench because everybody, you know, of course, had Megatron in and had Stafford in, and they're just ready to watch him ball out. And then they turn on and go, 8 inches of snow. Uh-oh. Cold ball. Uh-oh. You're not going to get the points you're going to get, and nobody did in that game on the Lions side of the ball. Now on the Philly side of the ball, Nick Foles is looking a little crappy. I have him in 2 of my leagues. He was playing in my playoffs in 2 of them. He finally, in the second half, got it together. And then, as I'll talk about in my picks, LeSean McCoy just balled the hell out like there's no tomorrow. And even broke a record. So I think the teams, they needed to figure it out. This is the first time it's really been severe weather. And in the first half, it's sluggish. But I think their coaches figure out this is what we're going to do. And it's really hard to tackle people in the snow.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you know, Nick Foles finally, like, turned it on. He was one of my picks last week. I think he got around, like, 20, 21 fantasy points, depending on your league. Yeah. So, and like I say, that should be enough. If your quarterback is getting you 20 or a little more, that should be enough for your team to win if you have good running backs, wide receivers, you know, tight end defense, all of that stuff. So if you have a good team, you shouldn't need 40 points out of your quarterback every week. It's great when they get it those weeks. But, you know, you shouldn't be needing to count on that. But Stafford had a terrible game. Of course, Megatron was one of my picks. He had a terrible game. And that's the thing, you know, we can look at the forecasts and try to see, you know, it's like when we do this show, but you never really know till game day. So, you know, you have to look at the weather. And, of course, this week I'm giving some picks that are either indoor picks or in better weather. You know, because of that factor, because we have no idea, you know, come this Sunday what it's going to be like on the East Coast, Midwest.
Yeah, because it's just been, we're in LA. What's the temperature out today?
Yeah, it's been cold here. I mean, we've been colder than normal. So
yeah, we had a lot of fans from the Tin Horn, I know, go back to the Soldier Field, and man, I'm sure they're freezing their asses off. But they got to see a good game, so
yeah,
I'm a little jealous, just a little jealous. My body's not jealous, but my mind is definitely jealous. So coming up, we're going to have our picks, but keep going to our hub, bigballsfantasyfootball.com. Make sure you go there and catch all of our social media, and we'll tell you more about that later in the show also. But are you ready with your picks?
Yeah, let's get into it. I have 3 real men, and they should be fun to watch, hopefully go off this week.
In domes or nice weather. Stay tuned.